only got 20% of the vote in Hamburg, while the rival SPD emerged with 50%. Let's get the latest on that from Nick Spicer, who's live in Hamburg. Bring us up to date with the latest, Nick.
It has been a massive upset for Angela Merkel's man in Hamburg, the mayor, Christian Allhaus. He's lost by a bigger margin than any CDU candidate has lost in its history, over 20 points, ending 10 years of center-right mayors in this city. It's a victory, of course, for the Social Democrats. Their score around 50%, which may mean they will be able to govern without any allies. The significance nationally of this regional race is that 3 more people from the Social Democrats will go to the upper house of parliament in Berlin. That will make it even harder for Angela Merkel to get her policies passed. Her hands will be tied. To a certain extent, she'll be forced into compromises with the opposition.
So what does that mean for Angela Merkel's leadership, Nick?
Well, this is what they're calling the super election year here in Germany. At least 7 regional elections will be taking place. This is just the first. The issues are often regional, but the consequences can be national because of the complicated mathematical situation, the mathematical the representation in the Bundesrat, the upper chamber, which is fed by these elections. It's difficult to predict the outcome, but ultimately what has happened here is the starting gun, if you will, to the super election year, and it's sounding here in Hamburg like a shot across the bows of the good ship Angela Merkel. The danger for her is that the coalition partner she governs with, the Free Democrats, may disappear entirely in these successive races, dropping beneath the 5% mark, which will make it difficult in the upcoming general election in 2013 for her to govern with them. She may have to look for a new coalition partner.
Okay, well, why did they fall out with CDU at local level?
Well, there was an alliance with the Green Party here, the ecologist. It was an experiment. It failed here to a certain extent, largely because of the personality of the mayor, Christoph Allhaus, who was a bit abrasive by local standards. Things didn't quite work out. He was even a little bit critical of the Greens. It didn't work. But the Greens are a rising political force in Germany. And if you look forward to September, they may well win the regional elections in Berlin. There is talk here of the Green Party replacing the Free Democratic Party in the months to come as the alliance partner for Angela Merkel's Christian Democrats.
All right, Nick, we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us from Hamburg with that update. Finally, Italy's embattled Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has appeared as a puppet of one of the country's most famous carnivals. Hundreds of people braved the rain to take part in Viareggio's historic annual mask festival. And it focused heavily on Berlusconi and, of course, the Moroccan teenager at the centre of his latest sex scandal. That's not her, and nor are they. The headlines from London with me, Stephen Cole, here on Al Jazeera. The Libyan security forces have again fired on mourners at a funeral for protesters killed in the last few days of anti-government demonstrations. A hospital official in the eastern city of Benghazi said 200 people had been killed there. Britain is urging Libya to open dialogue with protesters. Well, the US State Department has just issued a statement saying it's gravely concerned about the reports and the images coming out of Libya. It says it's raised its strong objections to the use of lethal force against peaceful demonstrators with a number of Libyan officials, including the foreign minister. Hundreds of pro- and anti-government protesters have clashed in the Yemeni capital Sana'a. President Ali Abdullah Saleh says he's seeking a compromise with the protesters who are demanding that he step down. Hashim Al-Habara has more.
He was very defiant that he won't allow anybody to bring about change by just going to the streets. He made it clear that he is open to any talk, but within the framework of the constitution. But Saleh, who came under mounting criticism from international human rights organizations for the clampdown unleashed on the protesters, pledged to ensure the safety of the media and the pro-democracy activists.
US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said Bahrain must carry out political reforms immediately. Meanwhile, protesters are now camped out, including carpets, inside the tents at the Pearl roundabout in the capital, Manama, after the government ordered the military to withdraw yesterday, and the police too, from the area. The governor of Kunar province says joint operations by Afghan and NATO forces have killed 64 civilians in the past 4 days. 20 were reported to be women and 29 children. Dozens more wounded are being treated in hospital in AlJazeera. NATO had sent a team of investigators to look into the claims. In Uganda, incumbent President Yoweri Museveni has secured his 5th term in office. He won 68% of the vote, while his main rival trailed with 26%. The top stories on Al Jazeera.
Began as a demonstration and turned into a revolution. 2 weeks of anti-government protests and Egypt is on a knife edge. Hosni Mubarak declares he won't run again for president. His son, Gamal, has been ruled out as the next in line. And a vice president, Omar Suleiman, has been appointed for the first time in 30 years. Egypt's health ministry says 11 people have been killed. But agencies report more than 300 deaths, with thousands more wounded. When protests began on the 25th of January, peaceful demonstrations were met with a brutal police force. As the calls for regime change move into their 3rd week, Egyptians have broken down the barrier of fear. But cracks between the protesters have started to show.
What was really interesting about the 3rd week of these protests is that everyone was talking about the momentum and momentum being lost, but the momentum that was being lost wasn't actually inside Liberation Square, where people were very much still united together in this quest to bring down Hosni Mubarak. The momentum that was changing was outside of the square, in the other parts of Cairo and beyond, where people had started to say, well, listen, Hosni Mubarak has now said that he won't run again. You only have to bear him for another few months. Why don't the protesters just leave the square? They've got what they want. So people were talking about a loss of momentum, but we never felt that inside Liberation Square. We only felt it outside.
I announced that I